Number 1, read the line.
You will behold the glory of my sacred wood.
That's not him.
Okay. Number 2, read the line.
You will behold the glory of my sacred wood.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Number 3.
You will behold the glory of my sacred wood.
That's him.
Every year, 1 in 5 gamers is accosted by an elf. We're tired of elves.
What's up, Lorehounds? It's Cooper here. We're at the Terra booth. We're with Dave Noonan. He is the lead writer, so we're going to be going over some of the lore for the game. Obviously, you're very action-driven, but before we get into the story, you guys have a lot of the other MMO stuff. You're not just, hack and slash the whole way through. You also have things like guilds and crafting and stuff like that. So, what can we craft? What are we going to be able to do? What kind of social aspects are there?
You'll be able to craft weapons and armor, a lot of your gear, and one of the great things about Terra is that it combines the really action-packed, rock'em sock'em, move around a lot action combat with all the depth you'd associate with an MMO, including full functional guilds and some longer content and crafting and a really immersive, persistent world. And so that's one of I think the neat things for me about getting to work on it is it's this interesting marriage of all that depth of the MMO with all of the action of, an action game.
Right, so you guys even have achievement systems that we're used to nowadays. You also have an auction house and stuff like that, and enchanting and other things like that. How one of the big things for a lot of people is maybe crafting. How deep is the crafting in this game? Is most of the stuff crafting, or are we looking for more loot drops? 50-50?
I think the overall design aesthetic is we recognize that people play in different ways, and some people really enjoy crafting as a game within a game, and they can get great gear doing that. If that's not your thing, if you prefer PvE content, you'll get equivalent gear that way too. It's just and it's a balancing act, making sure that no one way is way better than any other.
Right, because otherwise people will just ignore it.
Exactly, but as long as we can keep them equivalent and equivalently interesting, I think different kinds of players will naturally gravitate to different techniques for loot acquisition.
Do you think the amount of crafting you guys have will make, and the auction house and the player interactions will make for a good economy?
I think so. It's the economy is set up from the get-go to be really robust and dynamic, and as a guy who took a share of economics courses in college, I'm kind of curious to see sort of how the wealth curve pans out, and there's no laboratory like watching an MMO in those first weeks, those first months.
Yeah, it can be really interesting sometimes to see people corner the market on something and never let go.
Exactly. I have a feeling that there are a lot of masters and PhD candidates out there that are playing MMOs with a notepad in hand for their own theses. Yeah, just for their thesis, and also because it's fun.
Yeah, or creating them in the case of some other EVE Online, I think has a PhD.
Exactly.
For the economy there. But anyways, so the story in your game is very robust. We haven't heard so much about it, but you guys have incredibly diverse characters locked into specific roles, specific classes, sexes, and all that stuff. So you have to have a deep lore behind it, right? I mean, you'd be the go-to guy for this.
It's deep, and it's getting deeper. One of the things that we're really keen to express through Terra, thematically, it's a game about unity, and which works great in a game where you're playing an action game with 1,000 of your closest friends. There's the races, the playable races in the game have had to band together despite some significant misgivings about each other, because they're facing a threat that is greater than any of them could possibly defeat together.
Uneasy alliance kind of thing?
Yes, it's an uneasy alliance, but it's interesting because that alliance was formed before the game starts, so when players enter the picture, they're sort of a younger generation that's grown up with the idea of unity, that elves and humans and Castanics and Amani can work together. And so they're faced not only the traditional MMO enemies and this greater threat, but they also face the old guard within their own cultures, people who are not sure that this whole unity thing...
Somewhat racist kind of trapping.
Yeah, it's not racism, but I think there's a thematic thread there that, does speak to that sort of thing in the real world.
So how is the lore presented as we go throughout the game? Is it very quest-driven? Is it part of our dungeoning experience?
We do have a lot of quests, but I've had this unalterable bedrock opinion that the best game writing is game writing that delivers an impact quickly and then gets out of the way. so that you can get back to the gameplay. So you're not going to find a whole bunch of 20-minute long unskippable cutscenes or things like that. We're going to deliver story quickly and just really efficiently through tons of quests. The game is going to launch with, well, it depends on how fast I can write, but in the neighborhood of 1,000 quests.
It's all on you.
Yeah, no, I'm the reason the game can't come out yet. No, but
You heard it here first.
But the questing is absolutely a really important part, because I think that's it's a useful sort of integrative way to get people to connect with each other. Hey, are you on this quest? I need help with this other quest. That's a natural community building effort, especially a lot of the group quests we've got. Naturally are sort of things you can come together quickly for, achieve a common goal, and then either stick around and do some more, or go your separate ways.
So is there going to be a lot of quests in like an open world setting, or is it?
There are some instances, but there's a lot of open world stuff, including there's a bunch of big open world bosses that I suspect are going to be very popular until they kill everybody, and then they'll be very unpopular. But
Everyone will try until they get fed up and say the game's broken.
well, I think they'll eventually succeed. But I have, we play a lot at the office, and there are world bosses that it takes the whole office to beat.
Wow. So you guys have most of your game in the open world then?
I would say most of the game, yeah, is in the open world. Now, that said, we're still working on endgame, and we don't have a lot to say about that yet because we're not done yet. But if you leave temporarily endgame out of the equation, then yeah, I would say it's mostly open world.
But we're probably expecting more instance dungeon kind of thing as the endgame?
Well, the endgame, it could go a number of different ways.
So we could have both?
Yeah. And the intent is that more broadly, our endgame experience is a broad one, because again, we recognize that people play MMOs, especially at endgame, in very different ways.
Right.
No matter what your play style is, it would be a bummer to hit level 60 and throw your hands up and say, well, I'm done. I'm out of here.
I beat it.
Yeah, and so we want to keep you around. So a variety of content at endgame is absolutely critical to that.
So we just went in there and we did a 4-person play session, 5-person, sorry. And so are the groups usually 5-man?
Yes.
And then that was what I was led to believe. It was like the 3rd stage of some bigger quest line.
Yeah, what that is that's the Cultist Refuge, and it marks, as you say, sort of the border between the second part of a major plot and the third part, because as you saw, you go in there and you discover an enemy you didn't think was there. It's the first time that you have this oh my god moment when you realize that 2 very disparate enemies have in fact been working together, and you see a horrible creature that's 2,000 miles away from where all the horrible creatures are supposed to be, working with the other enemy that you had pretty much thought you had on the ropes. And that is a moment that has ripple effects throughout the rest of the plot. When you report back after that mission, people get very interested and very nervous in a hurry.
Now, was that an open world thing, or was that a dungeon?
That is an instance, and it's I think level 35 or so. So you're a little bit past the halfway point in the through line that takes you up to the end game at that point.
And when we're in those battles and you die, what happens like if there's a full wipe? Do we just start over? Does everything respawn? Because we died. We failed that time. At E3 we did well, but that time, not so much.
The instances do not reset immediately. In fact, the group leader has control over, it can reset an instance manually, but they usually don't respawn automatically. They certainly don't do so quickly.
And just some other couple, feature points. How many classes and races are there?
There are 6 races, and there are 8 classes. There are 2 tank classes, 2 melee damage dealers, 2 ranged damage dealers, and then 2 healer classes. Now that said, those roles only matter really in the group context. They all solo at more or less the same pace, and that's something that we're really keen about, is that we don't want anybody to feel like they have to walk their way at a very slow pace through the game when somebody else is just tearing through it.
Yeah, so the healer can get through without any problems. He doesn't have to respec or something like that. He can actually get through, no problem.
Exactly. That's I play a priest in on one of the servers at work, and I think he might actually level even a little bit faster right now than my archer, which is straight range damage, and you would think would be a natural for fast solo play. The priest is almost as fast, maybe even faster.
Oh, fantastic. So we got that level playing field. You don't have to have so many people complaining as long as we can keep the balance there.
Right, and it's a tricky thing to balance a game that's simultaneously for solo availability, and then for interesting dynamic group play, and then also for PvP. That's another balancing. That's the third arm on the balance. Yeah. And that I don't envy our designer counterparts that difficulty. That's tricky, but I think we're getting there.
It's great. Well, once you finish the writing, we can expect the game. So when do you think that's going to be?
It's going to be out in 2011.
Okay, and any chance we could get beta alpha keys?
What we're doing is we're doing signups online at terra-online.com, and we will announce on our newsletter when open betas and focus group testing, when all of that stuff happens, it'll get announced on the newsletter.
Okay, so action MMORPG Terra from NMAS Entertainment coming sometime in 2011.
Exactly.
Thanks so much. It looks awesome. Can't wait.
Thank you.